Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We have a big show. Happy Monday, everybody. Glad you could join us. Today, we're going to talk a little NBA. Luka Doncic signs a massive new extension with the Los Angeles Lakers. De'Aaron Fox signs a max contract extension with the San Antonio Spurs just a couple days into the league year officially beginning. We'll talk about the effects of both of those contracts and much more, as well as previewing the NFC North, the final of the four NFC divisions for us to go over, as the NFL season officially is just 1 month away. Today with me are my co-hosts Nolan Jambor and Mehrob Fatemi over here. We're going to take you through each and every massive piece of news from around the world of sports. And what better place to start, guys, than with the big one. Comes out just 2 days ago. Luka Doncic is the newest long-term Lakers. 3 years, $165 million for one of the best players on the planet. He didn't necessarily have his greatest season last year, dealing with an injury, coming back from that. Even so, in the playoffs, over 30 points in the series that they lost to the Timberwolves per game for one Luka Doncic. And the whole story surrounding him this summer, Mehrob, is the fact that he is skinnier than ever. He had that whole Vogue magazine come out about him doing everything, and now he's skinny Luka. What is the next season going to look like for the Lakers and Luka Doncic? Obviously, lots of changes, potentially LeBron being out of there, new ownership, and much more. This is the Luka Doncic era. How does it start off now that he's officially there for the long term?
Yeah, Jeremy, this was a big time move that came in to our over the weekend from Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers. This is a thing. This is a move that a lot of people expected, but they weren't 100% certain was going to happen. Luka Doncic, obviously coming from Dallas in a midseason trade, was definitely not himself for the first half of the season. By the time the playoffs rolled around, he found his he found his groove, started to find his way, found his role on the team, and started to find some gel with the team, get some chemistry going. But this was a move that they desperately needed to make. This is why they acquired Luka Doncic. They were willing to trade Anthony Davis and sacrifice a lot of their future so they could get a lifelong Laker over there. Mind you, it's still a 3-year deal, so it's not anything that is too crazy and too long of a contract. But this is an important move for the Lakers, not only just for Luka and their organization, but in terms of solidifying or trying to keep LeBron James as well. This is a guy in LeBron James that wants to compete for a championship. He said, "I want to stay." He wants to stay in LA, but he also really wants to compete for a championship, especially in his final year. This is most likely his final dance in the NBA this year, his final year before retirement. So overall, this is a big time move for them. It should keep LeBron around, especially I think LA was willing to give Luka that contract after seeing what the amount of effort and work he's put in the offseason to get skinny. Will that translate once the season starts? That's yet to be seen, but we can expect it. This is a guy in Luka Doncic that's really highly motivated, wants to play for a championship, got to the finals for the first time 2 years ago. Can we call it two? Yeah, I guess we can call it 2 years ago, in 2024. And it just fell up short. He wants to make it back there, and he wants to capture his first ring. He'll be there, and this was a big-time move for the Lakers.
Completely agree. I mean, this new Lakers ownership has definitely taken more of a jump towards trying to keep LeBron there, with them obviously getting new ownership, and they're looking to keep him there, signing DeAndre Ayton, giving, this Luka this insane contract, like you said, 3 years, $165 million, and they are doing everything that they can to make sure that Luka is in the best shape of his life, to make sure that obviously LeBron is happy. He is kind of, their guy. Obviously, he's been their guy for the past 6, 7 seasons now. And, I really just they're doing everything they can to keep him around. And Luka, with them putting him on a strict routine, workouts every day, losing weight. He's already down 25 pounds since the offseason started. They're just looking to keep him in the best shape as he can. Obviously, you're not in Texas. You're not eating that Texas food anymore, that barbecue, that brisket. So in LA, it's a lot of, a lot more healthy foods down there in LA. So they're doing everything they can to make sure he is eating all of that, keeping him in shape, keeping him on the court as long as he can. Because when he is healthy, we've seen it. He is easily an MVP caliber player. Easily better. When he's healthy, he's comparable to SGA, maybe even better. And yeah, I mean they're doing everything they can to make sure he's healthy, keep him there, and keep the fit Lakers fans happy, and try to get LeBron one last ring, like Mehrob said, his last dance.
Yeah, one of the things that both of you guys have touched on here, aside from Luka Doncic getting paid, is the impact this is going to have with LeBron. Of course, one of the big stories that we've talked about a whole bunch over the last month is what's going on with him. He opted into the final year of his contract, $52.6 million for LeBron James this year, and immediately put pressure on the Lakers to be competitive. They didn't quite get that done in free agency. I would not expect myself to be in the minority when I say that it wasn't what they wanted to happen. Losing Dorian Finney-Smith, replacing him with Jake LaRavia, and the big signing being, of course, bringing in DeAndre Ayton to play center, although I'm not sure how much of a needle mover that one really is. But LeBron James has been the core of this team really since he got there. It's changing now, and it's changing because of a couple factors. A, Luka Doncic is a better player than LeBron. This is the first time in LeBron's career he hasn't been the best player on a team, and I don't think he necessarily is against that. I'm not saying that he's a guy that feels threatened by that, but when you hear stories coming out of the Lakers like him not being aware that the buses were going to sell the Lakers for $10 billion when Luka Doncic was told. It starts to make a little more sense why he might get traded, and now you see this contract kind of signal that, hey, this is Luka's team now. Obviously, we've seen LeBron with half a season still kind of be that main guy as it was changing over to Luka, but I'll open this up back to both of you guys and more on that LeBron side of things. Does this make him more or less likely to ask for a trade now that Luka is locked up for the next couple seasons?
I think he stays. Ooh.
You're good, Nolan.
I think LeBron has wanted Luka for the past 2 seasons now. And I think this absolutely keeps him to stay. I think LeBron believes this is truly, the Lakers' time to kind of push through. I think last year they didn't have a fully healthy Luka. They really didn't have a solidified center who could take out. They did, Dorian Finney-Smith, but I think if they had, let's say they had a DeAndre Ayton last year instead of Finney-Smith, I think they could have put up a better fight against the T-Wolves. They couldn't guard Rudy Gobert. And I think DeAndre Ayton this year, comparable, would have been a lot better matchup for Timberwolves. So if they make it to the playoffs again, I think they absolutely can make a better run, a deeper run with a guy like DeAndre Ayton. They have made a lot of moves, like we've been saying, and I think LeBron will absolutely stay now. I see him having no reason to want to trade. He's in the perfect spot. He's a great team built around him. I think he stays. Also, he's in LA. Who'd want to leave LA? I wouldn't.
Yeah, agreed, Nolan. This is a big time move for the Lakers, and I think this kind of solidifies LeBron in that organization, for the rest of his career until he retires. The one thing I will say, and it continues to worry me a little bit, they are still missing a center at the end of the day. They did sign DeAndre Ayton. They did make that big time move for that buyout from the Trailblazers, excuse me, but. This is a team that's really lacking big men. They're lacking size and they're lacking defenders on the interior. They're going to be giving up a lot of points. You have scoring with LeBron and Luka Doncic, but you need a little bit more. And I think that is something that LeBron is still trying to pressure the organization into Rob Pelinka, trying to get him to make some more moves out there, to get another big man, to get some better wing defenders. Dorian Finney-Smith is a nice player, nice outside long ball shooter, a decent defender on the wing. But, I mean, you need somebody like a Jaden McDaniels, a legitimate, like a Drew Holiday, a legitimate defender to take away the other team's best player sometimes when you need to get a stop. You can count on that, on your team in general, to get a stop. There are still a little bit of pieces that this Lakers team needs to be competitive for a championship, but I definitely think they're going to be right back in playoff contention and still be a tough out for whoever faces them in the playoffs.
Right. Any team with Luka and LeBron on it automatically is going to be a playoff caliber team. I don't feel like that's that crazy of a take, right? These two guys are Luka's probably a top 3 player in the world, especially when healthy, and LeBron James can still throw his hat in the ring to arguably be top 10. I think maybe that's putting him a little bit too high, but definitely top 20. You have two top 20 players. I think that's pretty safe to say you're automatically going to be at least a competitive team. But like we were talking about before, LeBron James wants this team to be competitive, and Luka was on this team last year. I don't think this move and what they've done this offseason has really pushed them any higher than where they were. They were the third seed in the West last year. But I feel like the Clippers have gotten better. The Oklahoma City Thunder have gotten better. The Clippers were the 5 seed. The Nuggets have gotten better around them. All of these teams that were in that same standings area with them have gotten better. The Rockets, of course, who were the 2 seed last year, gotten better. So the 1, 2, 4, and 5 seeds when the Lakers were the 3 have all, I think, surpassed them or, continued to keep pace this summer. And I think it's not enough. And I think it's going to be more on the Lakers rather than LeBron. And I'm honestly shocked there hasn't been more noise on it. If he truly was going to get traded, my read on the situation is at this point, it's probably not going to happen. But I still think with the state of the Eastern Conference, if there was going to be a move for LeBron with the way that things are looking, it would be this season. I don't think you could get him any other time. I look at a team like the Knicks as the most likely one to make a trade. We talk about basically him for Cat straight up. You might have to throw a little bit of incentives on either one of those sides, depending on which side feels like they're giving up the worst player or long-term asset kind of thing. But I think that's probably the one that we're looking at as far as a move for LeBron James. Outside of that, one of the more interesting stories in this one is just the total. Obviously, $55 million a year, $165 million is nothing to scoff at, no doubt about it. But the one side of this that I think is a little interesting is the fact that since he was traded, he's no longer eligible for that Supermax, that $70 million contract that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander signed this offseason, right? He's not eligible for that anymore because Nico Harrison traded him away. He's going to be eligible for an $80 million contract in 2 or 3 years whenever his player option or whenever his contract runs out. But you get him for a little bit of a discount for these next couple seasons. What are the Lakers going to use this money for? What is their plan to take advantage of a small discount and a small advantage when you have a top 3 player in the world making just $55 million?
I think the one thing that I'm really kind of is going overlooked a little bit, since with all the noise with the summertime, the NBA not being as active, I wouldn't not be shocked if we saw the Lakers be really active before the trade deadline this year. I would not be shocked at all, especially with new ownership taking part in LA. You saw this is a team in LA or an ownership that doesn't usually throw money around like that. The only player they've really spent money for, like real money for, is LeBron James. And that is the only guy that they, of course, it's LeBron, you're going to pay him the money that he wants. But outside of that, you have not seen them make very knee-jerk moves or throw money at players or at least significant money like this for anybody outside of Luka Doncic now. I would not be shocked if they're active before the trade deadline again. Not as active for a massive move this past summer or this past winter, no way. But for some smaller moves to get this team, to get some role players, to get some depth, to get this team where it needs to get to be a legitimate NBA Finals competitor. That's what I think they're going to be doing, and I would not be shocked if they're really active trade deadline.
Yeah, on the other side of things here, I think there's a question as far as what kind of options this Lakers team has. Again, we talked about whether or not this makes them better, but bringing Luka in on just a three-year deal is the minimum that you could give him. Obviously, one of the more interesting parts of it, Nolan, is the fact that he signed it the first day that the league year started, August 2nd. So there was likely, no question that he was going to sign it. But there were some questions being asked in the media after the whole Dorian Finney-Smith situation, him leaving, a guy that Luka famously really likes. gone because of the way that Rob Pelinka reportedly treated him or said some stuff about him in the media over the course of their relationship on that team together. That was something that I was watching. It happened real fast. What do you make of that kind of situation, Nolan?
It kind of sucks, Stanley Smith not wanting to stay, when things are just going their way, when obviously this is going to be their year, and everybody knew it. Everybody knew Luka was in the lab, he was getting better, and Dorian Finney-Smith realized, he's probably going to be replaced by DeAndre Ayton. He was like, I'm out. Like I got no reason to play here. I don't want to play here. He would have been a great He would have been a great, they could have had him somewhere else. They could have had him power forward, put him in center, wherever. But he probably would have still gotten a lot of minutes for the Lakers. Rob Pelinka didn't really play him much last year in the playoffs for some unknown reason. He really didn't get that much. He really didn't get that many minutes, and I think that was one of the reasons they lost so badly to the Timberwolves. But I think he definitely could have seen the error in his ways and definitely could have reconsidered, reevaluated how many minutes he would have received this upcoming season, seeing how valuable of a player he is. He's a great defender, he's a great inside scorer, and like you said, Rob, earlier, he's a great 3-point shooter for his size. I mean, he would have been a great asset for the Lakers to have, but no, he's gone, and it's just kind of it's just a big loss for the Lakers. Unfortunately, they could still build a good rotation around him being gone, but him being there would have changed the entire honestly their entire season, their entire outcome of how good they could have been because he had experience playing with Luka and LeBron last year. Not both of them not really healthy this year. They come back to a fully healthy LeBron, fully healthy Luka with DeAndre Ayton. I mean, they would have been very good this year. Obviously, it's the West, so they would have been a power. They would have been, it's obviously a slaughterhouse over there, but it still would have been a really competitive Lakers team that could have been, higher than a 6 seed than they were last year. Maybe a 4, maybe a 5, maybe a 3. But I mean, I'm not sure where he'll end up going. I think any team could really use him, really could utilize him. Any team can. But I don't know. It kind of sucks that he's gone. He would have been a great player for the Lakers, but sucks that he's gone, honestly.
Right, not necessarily about DFS, who signed with the Rockets in free agency, but this is more along the lines of the relationship with the Lakers. Right, there was rumors of friction between him, Luka, his representatives, and the Lakers. Not as much as there was in Dallas, but him signing on the first possible day when he could, the day that the league season officially goes through and the contracts can be put out to current players. How does this look for the future of the Lakers with Luka? Does it mean that he's going to be there for presumably the end of his career, Mehrob?
I'd say this is something. This is what I said at the top of the show when this topic first came up. This is why there was a little bit of rumors that after after he missed out on his big deal in Dallas, he was a little bit hesitant to sign with a team for a long-term deal. I still would say I think this helps his case to be that he's going to be a lifelong Laker from here on out. But I wouldn't say it's completely off the table. That's what I would say. I would say it's still in the options, just very less likely it was before. This was a big time extension and helped that case a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. From one team that's, at least in my perspective, uh, starting over to a team that is seemingly ready for the brightest future possible. The San Antonio Spurs, not to be outdone by the Los Angeles Lakers, give their guard that they traded for at the trade deadline a max contract. 4-year max contract for De'Aaron Fox here. Start with you, Mayrob. This is a contract that, of course, probably was always going to happen when they made this move. But now that you add, him to Stephon Castle and rookie Dylan Harper, how is the allocation of minutes going to be with these guards as they play alongside Victor Wembanyama? Because that's something that I was concerned about when we were heading up into the NBA draft, despite Dylan Harper really being just the best pick available.
Absolutely. And that you said it best. That was the biggest concern with the Spurs team. Very guard heavy team. I fully expect De'Aaron Fox to start out the season as the starting point guard for this team. No doubt about it. A all pro level, all NBA level point guard, one of the best point guards in the league, no doubt. Um, I would definitely say it's gonna be interesting to see if Dylan Harper would possibly overtake Devin Vassell at the shooting guard position. That is something that has been in rumors for a while. Devin Vassell, every time you hear a Spurs rumor, Devin Vassell is involved in that. So that is something I would not be shocked if the Spurs are looking into and just waiting to see how Harper grows into that role. But for now, definitely, I love De'Aaron Fox being extended into this contract. I love De'Aaron Fox is personally one of my favorite players in the NBA, one of the more underrated players in the NBA. And honestly, I think he was a massive pickup for them. It was unfortunate that he got injured, him and Wembanyama this past year. But I think upcoming season, that is going to be an unbelievable duo in the NBA.
Yeah, they make a pretty big commitment to him. Now, 4 years max contract. Obviously, he wasn't eligible for that super max, but getting over $200 million, pairing him up with Victor Wembanyama, who really any day now, any season is ready to break out as a top 5 player in the NBA. He just hasn't had a full healthy season. That's going to be a really fun duo. Victor Wembanyama is going to be amazing with any guard, and you get the passing and playmaking of Fox. Pair that with, again, Rookie of the Year, reigning winner Stephon Castle over there, and now the rookie that they take with the second overall pick in Dylan Harper Nolan. How does this affect them this upcoming season?
I think the only way it affects them is honestly it's going to make them a better team. I really think so. I think this is only going to help them for the better. De'Aaron Fox, great player for them. He's been a great player his entire career. He always has been. He's an efficient point guard, he's an efficient shooter. He gets whatever is done. And hopefully, with Victor Wembanyama coming back fully healthy this year off that clot, I mean, that blood clot would be great. He is, like we all know, one of the most insane prospects we've seen in the NBA since LeBron, quite frankly. Maybe Zion, who knows. But, this starting five, if you're looking at it, it's De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper, Vassell, Harrison Barnes, and Wemby. And Stephon Castle, in my opinion, obviously he should be one of the starting five, Rookie of the Year player after all. But, De'Aaron Fox, like I said, signing that max, the 4 year, is still, it's only going to help them. Having, a great player, a great guy leading your team, one of the older guys in your team, leading this super young, honestly, one of the youngest teams in the NBA, leading them through the Western Conference, like we all know, the harder of the two conferences, but with a very young and very talented roster. This is only going to help them for the better. He got all the money he wanted. Now he has everything to put into the game. He can teach, he can coach, he can just be there as a mentor, as a role model to help grow them. So like I said, this is only going to help them for the better and throughout the future seasons to come.
Yeah, and I guess the question we should have started this out with, this contract is done, right? But is he worth this money? De'Aaron Fox has always been this kind of guy who's been very good, but has not quite hit, at least in my opinion, that great tier. Now, he was one of my favorite players coming out of that draft, drawing comparisons to John Wall, who was my favorite player growing up, right? So I love watching him, and I want him to succeed, and I think he's going to be very good down in San Antonio. But is he a player that's necessarily worth a max contract? I'm less certain when it comes to that. What do you guys think of him getting a max right now?
I mean, I just think this is a guy in De'Aaron Fox that, when healthy, when at his best, almost, I should say, forced a Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors the year after they won the NBA championship in 2023. This is a team that when they were fully loaded, this is a guy when he was fully healthy and had a great group of guys around him. This is his best team around him since that 2023 Kings team that he took to the playoffs and snapped that 18-year drought over there in Sacramento. I think he's a phenomenal player. I just think he's been riddled with injuries, and that's a big reason why he was not eligible for that Supermax contract. Other than that, though, I think he's going to be really good in San Antonio.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to agree with you there on that one. We're going to take just a quick break. When we come back, we finish off our show today, and I know it's weird to say that halfway through, but we have yet another NFL division to preview, the NFC North. The best division in football from last season. Can they live up to expectations? How many teams are getting into the playoffs? Can the Lions repeat as kings of the North? We'll answer all those questions coming up next here on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. If you are just tuning in, we are your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus, Nolan Jambor, and Mehrob Fatemi over there. You can find us all over the internet, wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube at Triple Threat Show, Twitch at 3 Threat Show, Instagram at 3 Threat Show _, and at TikTok at _, Triple Threat Show. Give us a follow. Check us out everywhere. But like I said, we're going to finish off our show here today going over the NFC North, the last of the divisions for us to preview in the NFC, as we are halfway through our season preview with the season starting in just 1 month. The Detroit Lions were the kings of the North last season, losing after being the first overall seed in the NFC, barely beating out the Vikings, who were the 5th seed despite having the second best record in the NFC, a juggernaut of a division that saw 3 teams make the playoffs, all but the Chicago Bears, although the Chicago Bears could be a lot better with a new head coach, a new offensive-minded head coach in Ben Johnson, and support system around Caleb Williams over there. This is going to be a very interesting division to watch. Now, I will say, I don't think it's going to be as good as last year. And I don't think that's much of a hot take. Obviously, the Bears could be better. The Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings could all be better. But there are a lot of questions around this division. What's going to happen with J.J. McCarthy? How is he going to look for the Vikings? How does Caleb Williams work with Ben Johnson and this new Bears offense? How long does it take for them to step it up? Can the Packers overcome their limitations in that defensive side of the ball? They really struggle on corners right now. They let go of Jair Alexander. Now they're working out Bo Melton, a wide receiver, to go play corner for them. And can Jordan Love really be the answer? He's yet to be proven to be that right answer. And the Lions, as good as they were last season, they lose both their offensive and their defensive coordinator. Hopefully and most likely they'll be healthier than last year, but they also lose one of those centerpieces of their offense in Frank Ragnow to free agency. Can they bounce back? Can they survive losing all of those key pieces? There are a lot of questions with this NFC North, and I think it's going to lead this to be a much worse division than a lot of people think, despite the possibility that all 4 of these teams have to claim the crown on this division. I think overall it's going to be a little bit disappointing. Am I way off on reading that situation, Nolan?
Obviously, the Lions, even as a Lions fan, we hopefully will still be good. Hopefully, we can still get that 1 seed in the NFC North. But losing the offensive genius, as Ben Johnson did, losing a great defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn, I mean, it really does stink. It really does. Luckily, you really didn't lose anybody on either side of the ball besides Frank Ragnow on the offensive line. We still have our entire offensive line. Just signed the kid out of Georgia, Tate Ratledge, who is honestly has the meanest mullet I've ever seen in my life. A mean mullet on a lineman automatically means they're a great player. But no, our entire team is honestly fine. You saw us in the Hall of Fame game. It doesn't count.
That's right.
Preseason, that's our G League team. That does not count. But it's still going to be a good division. Don't get me wrong. J.J. McCarthy, he's going to come in fully healthy. He's got surrounded. J.J. McCarthy is quite literally in one of the best spots any quarterback has been in a long time. Justin Jefferson. It's all he had. He has Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, a great offensive line. He has so many weapons around him to succeed. Honestly, the Packers, their offense was phenomenal last year. It'll be just as good as it was last year, maybe a little better. A more experienced quarterback, more experienced line, more experienced receiving room. They're going to be just as good. And the Bears, really, honestly, they're going to be just as good, possibly, hopefully better than 5-12. I think they will be. Obviously, you get a whole new head coach. I can see Ben Johnson with a great offensive quarterback who obviously they're just going to be fine. It's going to be just as good as a division. But I don't know. Hopefully the Lions still take the 1 seed. I don't know. Hopefully so.
Yeah, and I want to start off with one of those things that you talked about. J.J. McCarthy is one of the more fascinating pieces of the puzzle in this division. Obviously, last year, we saw the Vikings go and win 13 games. 13 games with Sam Darnold. You brought about the factors. Justin Jefferson, my opinion, the best wide receiver in the NFL. His running mate, Jordan Addison, despite him most likely being suspended for a couple games this season, is going to be really good when he comes back. TJ Hawkinson, one of the more underrated tight ends. They really shored up that offensive line list this offseason, getting a couple of players from the Colts and giving them nice contracts in free agency. And of course, Aaron Jones is a really solid running back. You also have Brian Flores and Kevin O'Connell as your offensive and defensive coaches. That is a deadly combination. He is, as you said, Nolan, in the best situation to succeed, and yet I don't know how it's going to go. If he was anywhere else, and I have been on record over the last year plus of not loving J.J. McCarthy as a quarterback. Seems like a great dude, but as a quarterback on the field, I'm not convinced that he's going to be that great. He was in a very run-heavy offense at Michigan when he won a national championship. We haven't really seen him take the full responsibility of a very complicated offense like Kevin O'Connell runs. Maybe sitting on the sidelines for one season in the rookie year helped him. But Mehrob, what do you think of the Vikings under J.J. McCarthy? What is their floor? What is their ceiling? Because I think they could be anywhere from like a 5-win team to maybe a 12-win team. That record could be flipped depending on how J.J. comes out and plays.
Yeah, this is a Vikings team that's got a question mark on it. You pretty much keep a lot of that wide receiving room. The whole offense is basically the same, except you plug out Sam Darnold and plug in a J.J. McCarthy. This is a guy in J.J. McCarthy at Michigan 2 years ago, shockingly enough. J.J. McCarthy that struggled a little bit when passing the ball, had a lot of criticism on that side, was pretty much a lot of people said that he was carried to a national championship with Michigan with that running game, with that offensive line. So he's got a lot to prove with his passing game, and he's got a lot of doubters. He's got a lot of critics to write off over there on that side. Outside of that, I mean, I really like some of the. They added a Byron Murphy on the back line. They re-signed Aaron Jones to continue to stifle that running game. I really like they've really kept the team the same way as it was last year. They didn't lose too many people, add too many. But at the end of the day, when we're looking at the Vikings, we're looking at that quarterback. The quarterback is going to be where this offense runs through and how a lot of games end out. The defense will keep them in a lot of games, but it's going to be that quarterback that's going to be able to win them those games. That's just my thoughts on it.
The other piece of the puzzle, as much as I think that J.J. McCarthy can at least be as good as Sam Darnold, Nolan, is the schedule. It's a lot harder. You, of course, play two divisions outside of your own. The Vikings and the rest of the NFC North, they have to play not only a tough second place schedule, but they have to play the NFC East, which arguably the best division in football. The Commanders, the reigning champions Eagles, and a revamped Cowboys. Also toss the Giants in there for a free win potentially. But also you have to face off against the AFC North, the Ravens, who are arguably the best team in football on paper. The Bengals, who offense is going to give any teams problems. And the Steelers, who with Aaron Rodgers are going to have a bone to pick in every single one of these games, especially against the Packers in this division. It's not going to be an easy schedule when compared to the one that they played last year. How much is that going to affect a basically pseudo rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, Nolan?
Well, first off, a revamped Cowboys, I'm going to take that back. I don't think the Cowboys are really revamped. I think they're kind of degressing. But that's all the Micah Parsons, all that situation. But if he stays in Dallas, yes, they will be a good team. But regardless, their schedule I'm looking at is pretty lethal. Obviously, they start off their start schedule. Their first 3 games, I should say, are pretty easy. I wouldn't say easy, but the defenses they're playing against aren't too hard. And then he gets to Pittsburgh, known to be a top 3 defensive team every year, and especially a guy like J.J. McCarthy, who at that point still will be pretty inexperienced, only with his 4th game. And against, like I said, one of the best defenses in the NFL, it could be a little rattling to them, going against, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, and like you said, he's played against that division his entire career. He's played against the Lions, he's played against the Bears, he's played especially against the Vikings, who he is known to not like very much. Well, it's the Bears as well, but he hates straight up. He just hates the Vikings, and he is going to play the best football he possibly can to make sure that he keeps on the legacy that he owns the NFC North.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the quirks of this schedule too is the Vikings actually play back-to-back games in uh overseas. They start week 4 against the Steelers in Ireland, and then against the Browns, they're actually staying because they play in London. 2 weeks over there. I don't know how much of an advantage that gives them, but a little quirk of their schedule as they play two defenses that could be really tough. That travel is going to be a really interesting thing to watch. Overall, we talked about this tough schedule. That's the thing that really sticks out to me. And as much as I think J.J. McCarthy can do exactly what Sam Darnold did, I'm not necessarily too high on this team. I think they come out strong because I think the beginning of their schedule lends itself to being a strong starter. But down the stretch, after your early bye week, Eagles, Chargers, Lions, Ravens, right off the gate, and then it doesn't really let up. A couple of division games, a Seahawks team that won 10 games last year, Commanders, Cowboys, and then a break with the Giants before finishing 2 more division games. The back half of that schedule is going to be brutal. So I'm a little bit lower on this Vikings team than I think some people are, and it's burned me before. It burned me last year, but I don't believe in J.J. McCarthy too much. I have him going 5-12, although, like I said, there's a real possibility that if everything clicks, this team could very easily be 12-5. So I'm curious how you guys think this Vikings team is going to look this season.
But they got Justin Jefferson. I mean, that's all I really got to say. And they got Justin Jefferson. I mean, nah, but I mean, I can agree with you. I think that 5 wins is way too little. I think they get at least bare minimum. I think their floor. I think it's 7 wins. I think their floor is 7-10. I think they're too good of an offensive team to only win 5 games. I think their floor is 7-10, and their ceiling, I'd say like 11-6, maybe 12-5, but they won't get to 13 wins again.
Yeah, I actually have them going with a winning record myself. I have them sitting at 10-7, 9-8, 10-7 area. They do have a little bit of a tough schedule, but I think some of those games, especially against the AFC North, are played at home, and I think that's going to be a big time deal for them. Playing in Minnesota is always a tough place to play, and I think that's going to play in favor of JJ McCarthy, who's always played. He played in Michigan. Now, of course, that Ann Arbor is one of the toughest places to play in college football because of that home field advantage. I think he's going to be used to that. I think he's going to play in Vikings. I have them sitting at 10-7 myself.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of variances. So I'm on the low end. You guys could find yourselves just about anywhere, and it wouldn't be that insane because this is a Vikings team that's really built to succeed. And the one question with them, the big question, the big X factor, what does J.J. McCarthy look like? Outside of that, the rest of this division has plenty of questions as well. We went over it at the beginning. The Packers, of course, seem to be the most straightforward team. They have Jordan Love. He's been paid $55 million a year. We can debate whether or not that's a good contract. Again, that's kind of just the going rate of quarterbacks these days, and I don't necessarily hate it, but as good as he's been, he's yet to prove that he consistently, despite dealing with a lot of injuries last year, can be the guy that the Packers need going forward. This is a really interesting team. We talked about the lack of depth at the cornerback position, but also they haven't really had that great of a pass rush. One of their biggest weaknesses from last year was that pass rush situation and just being non-existent. We've seen them struggle against the run game. That defense is a real concern for me. How good is this Packers team going to look like, Mehrob? What do you see them doing as they try and prove that they are ready to be Super Bowl contenders?
Yeah, Jeremy, I think you brought up brilliantly at the beginning, bringing up that back line, that cornerback situation. Losing Jair Alexander, I think, is going to be a big deal for this Packers team. I still love their defensive line. They best defense, being able to get pressure on the quarterback. But in terms of defense, in terms of teams being able to air it out on, especially with that schedule, you have to play the Lions and to play the Vikings twice and Justin Jefferson. You have to play the Eagles, the Ravens, all across the board, the Broncos. Across the board, I just don't like some of these matchups. This just a little disclaimer for this division. I have a lot of these teams, almost every single team splitting in their divisions. in the NFC North. All of the NFC North have splitting 1-1 in their games, but I have the Packers sitting at 9-8 just because I think Jordan Love will still be good. I just think this schedule for all of these teams is so tough it's nitpicking to see who's going to win, and I think home field is so important in these games.
I agree. I think that maybe they can scrape by an extra win at 10-7. I think their home field advantage come, the end of November, December, January. I think it's too like if those home games they're gonna win solely based off them being in Green Bay. Their home field advantage is quite possibly one of the best in the NFL. It's just, being on the water, negative temperatures on the field and the air. I mean, it's just too cold there. Besides Buffalo, they have one of the best home field advantages come wintertime. And this Green Bay team, like we said, I wasn't high on them at all last year. I really didn't see them being too good last year. They came out and surprised. They made the playoffs. Granted, they got bounced first round, like every other NFC North team did. But they still had a pretty solid record, 10-7 last year. And this year, I could see them being the exact same. They lost Jair Alexander, and their defensive line really doesn't have too much pressure. That's why in the draft they got one, and the defensive side they got a corner, tackle or an edge rusher, and a linebacker to try to help with that defensive faults that they have. So I can see them 9-8, 10-7 at best, not just about the same as last year, and maybe make a playoff spot.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as you guys here. I have them going a little bit worse. I have them going 8-9, but I don't see this team as any worse than mid. Really, this is not a bad team. You have Jordan Love. You have the options. I think Golden is going to be a very good option at wide receiver. The question is, again, how is that defense going to hold up against the high-powered offenses of the Ravens, of the Eagles, of the Bengals, all of these teams, the Lions and the Bears with a new offensive coordinator? How are they going to hold up? How is that defense going to fare? And my answer is, it'll be fine. They'll be okay, but they're not going to be too special. And that's the kind of reading I have on this Packers team. 8-9. Again, a much tougher schedule. I don't think their roster changed enough for it to be very different. The Bears, on the other hand, have changes out the wazoo, right? This is a Bears team that has new coaching staff completely. They still have the same quarterback, although I'm willing to call his rookie season a wash. Caleb Williams has not been looking the best in training camp, to say the least. He's seen lots of clips of him struggling with that offense, although the strategy seems to be to overload him and then take it back a little bit so that it feels easier as time goes on. We've seen how bad coaching can really hurt a quarterback's development over the years. There's plenty of examples of it. The big what ifs of just a really talented player going to a bad situation, a bad organization, and it ruining everything for him. Last year was awful for Caleb Williams. Horror stories of him watching film alone, no coaches in the building, the near historic number of sacks he took last season. How easy is it going to be for the Bears to turn Caleb Williams' career around? Nolan, what are you looking at as far as how quick Caleb Williams is going to be able to pick up an admittedly complicated system from a Ben Johnson?
It can simply not get worse than it was last year. There is no possible way. I mean, it's just as easy to say that. Ben Johnson, like I said earlier, one of the best offensive minds in the NFL right now, and stepping into a new head coaching role where obviously he's going to be an offensive heavy head coach, he's going to be spending a lot of one-on-one time with Caleb Williams, and he has definitely been talking to him, definitely been overloading him on purpose in just the drills that he's doing to try to make him more, I guess, like irritated at himself, and so he can calm himself down. He can work on his self-confidence, work on his ability to thrive in stressful situations. I think that's something he needs a lot because Caleb Williams, like I said last year, it wasn't even his fault. His head coach, the coaching situation in Chicago last year, it was just horrible. And plus they really didn't have too many weapons last year to make him an elite quarterback. What they wanted out of him, no O line. Cole Kmet's not a horrible tight end. Definitely not a tight end that can help you win games. You had Romaduze. He's not. You really only had one receiver last year. Now, do the draft. They got two new offensive linemen, two solid O linemen, one from Michigan State, Go Green. But they also just got Colson Loveland out of Michigan, one of the second best tight end in the NFL draft this year, behind Tyler Warren out of Penn State. They also got the number one receiver from Missouri, Luther Burden the third. So I mean, this team, Chicago's offensive team this year, could definitely be a lot better. Their schedule, like every other NFC North team, is pretty difficult. They're definitely looking at it. It's a little easier than from what we looked at between the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions. The Lions have one of the hardest schedules in the NFL this year, but they have definitely one of the easier ones compared to the other NFC North teams. And this is definitely a Bears team that I can see definitely being hopefully better than 5-12. I can maybe not a playoff team yet, maybe next season or the season prior, but this is the Bears team I can see winning 7 or 8 games this year. I really hope so. I do like Justin Fields. Caleb Williams. But I think he is a very talented quarterback. I think he has so much to prove, and with this new arrangement that he has, this new situation that he's been put into, I really can't see a way for him to fail. He's not in a J.J. McCarthy situation where he cannot fail. I think he's in a spot where even if he does fail, it's not his fault entirely because he's basically a rookie again with this new head coach. So I think they can, like I said, win 7 to 8 games this year and hopefully improve afterwards.
Yeah, this is a Bears team. I think you laid it out perfectly, Nolan. I think they have a little bit of an easier schedule. 10-7 myself. It's a little bit of a. It's a little bit of a. I'm definitely. I have my expectations set a little bit high for, no doubt. I'm probably sitting between 7 to 10 wins for them though. I just don't. I think some of those divisional games could be tough for them though. The game against the Lions, honestly, all three of those games could be flip flops, and honestly, it could be the decisive factor for who wins this division. But overall, I think this is a Bears team that really decides how good they are based on how Caleb plays this year. He's struggled so far through training camp. So I don't know how well he's going to be doing. Right now, I'm leaning towards the 7 wins, but this is a Bears team that just has a lot of potential, a lot of great weapons on the offensive end. On the defensive end, they did really well as well. I think that across the board, this is a really good Bears team. It's just going to end up being how the quarterback plays. At the end of the day, 8 years ago, you drafted you didn't draft Patrick Mahomes 8 years ago, and then you passed up on Jaden Daniels for Caleb Williams. So this is the curse that keeps on giving. Hopefully it doesn't keep going, but I got the Bears sitting at 10 wins myself.
Yeah. And you guys are right. The ceiling is incredibly high with this Bears team, but a lot of the stories coming out of camp, and as much as we focused on the offense, hasn't been great for the offense, but coming out of the defensive side of the ball, it's been really positive. This is a Bears defense that I think we forget in the early weeks of the season was one of the best in all of football. They have a lot of very talented players at all 3 levels, and if they can stay healthy, especially their corner depth is going to give them a pretty solid matchup against some of these teams that they have to face in the AFC North. Especially the Bengals are the one that I'm shouting out there. It gives them a much better chance against the team like that one. But again, a lot of it depends on what this offense is going to look like. I have them also sitting at 8 and 9. I think this is a Bears team that's going to improve, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time. The revamped offensive line is going to be huge for Caleb Williams. I still don't think this is the best offensive line. They can continue to improve it. I think they go from maybe the worst in the league to somewhere sitting around 12 to 14, which huge improvement. You take that every single time you possibly can, but it's not like it is a fix-all. Caleb Williams still needs to improve, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time and a slow start, but I think as we get down the stretch of the season, as the great opponents kind of go away, he'll get more comfortable, and they get more into a groove as the season goes on. I have him going 8 and 9. But that leads us to our 4th and final team here in the NFC North, Nolan, your Detroit Lions. They have, likewise with the Bears, been through a lot of changes, retirements, players leaving, players coming back from injury, 1 million players coming back from injuries, the entire coaching staff being gutted, and I think that's where we should start because that is going to affect this team. Undoubtedly, that is going to affect this team. How much is the big question? Dan Campbell is a great coach, a great leader of men kind of coach. That has its value in the NFL. Keep the guys motivated, buy into a culture, but he's not the kind of guy that's going to keep an offense rolling. He's not the kind of guy that's going to keep a defense rolling. He's a guy that's going to get the effort out of the players, but a lot of it's going to come down to how good of a staff he can build. And he built a great staff with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, but now they're both gone. How much is this going to affect this team? Is this Alliance team that can repeat as Kings of the North again?
Well, obviously, I'm gonna say yes, but me being a Lions fan, I'm gonna say yes. I think this Lions team is still one of the most talented in the NFL. The only really major loss we had on offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball was the retirement of Frank Ragnow, one of the best, honestly, linemen in the NFL before he retired. And we are, like I said earlier, we found a replacement. Tate Ratledge out of Georgia. I think, granted, he's only a rookie. We haven't even seen him play. He didn't even play in the Hall of Fame game. He probably won't play in preseason. But, I mean, just based off the stats that you see off the kid, he let up so few sacks last year. I believe he only let up 2 sacks the entire season. And in the early interviews, when he was talking about it, he was just kind of like what happened with LSU, how their kind of offensive line treated their system. You let up a sack, like it burns into you. This guy, he's willing to protect the quarterback and everything he has. I think this Lions offense is still just as good as they were. Jared Goff, he's going to need to step it up. But, after his last play performance, he's definitely going to have to step it up a little bit. But this Lions team is still fine. We're still going to be a good team. Our new offensive coordinator, we brought back from the Broncos. He was a former Lions coach, John Morton. He was a former Lions coach. I was like more of an assistant. He goes to Denver as their wide receivers coach. He now comes back as their offensive coordinator. I think we'll be fine with that. Obviously, losing Ben Johnson, that is going to be a devastating blow to any team who had him. He was in every game. There was some sort of trick play on the offense, a triple reverse option. I mean, who knows? He always cooking something up out of the blue. Seeing Jameson Williams run 90 yards for a touchdown after David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs flip flop. I mean, who knows? Who knows with that? But losing him sucked, and obviously losing Aaron Glenn, he was a very, very good defensive coordinator. Even with so many defensive injuries last year, we had so many just guys stepping up and Aaron Glenn has found each guy in the right position at the right time. We lost him to the Jets, and now our new guy, who Kelvin Shepard. Sorry, I almost said Kevin. Kelvin Shepard. He's gonna step up. Here's our former linebacker coach, and now him already being familiar with the defense, he's gonna be able to run it just as fine as Aaron Glenn did. Maybe a little worse because he focused more on linebackers prior. So the defensive the D backs and interior line could be a little worse, but I still don't see them being that different at all. I think with us losing our coordinators, it will affect the team. Obviously, you're losing that chemistry there, but you have 2 guys who have already been with the program and already were with the program previously and who already know the players well. I think this Alliance team that could definitely go back, repeat as the Kings of the North. Even with the tough schedule they have, I still see them going floor 10-7, ceiling 12-5.
Yeah, 12-5 is a little bit of a high record. I think just because of how tough their schedule is. They have we keep saying this is probably the 4th time it's been said so far in the show. They have an absolute brutal schedule. When I'm looking at the Lions this year, as much as I'd say Frank Ragnow was the biggest hole or is the biggest hole on this defense, I'm actually looking at the defensive back line. I'm looking at the cornerback, and I'm looking at Carlton Davis leaving to the Patriots. That is a big-time loss for this Lions team. And I wouldn't say it's a killer blow, but especially with the type of players that you have to go up against in the wide receiving room in terms of opponents across the board, I could make a whole list. I could make a collage of. It is crazy. They probably have to play 7 of the top 10 receivers in the league this year. That is how crazy of a schedule this is for the Lions. But in terms of offensively, I'm looking at Amon to continue to play better. I'm looking at Jahmyr Gibbs to have a little bit of an upbeat year this year. I have a little bit of we've been lamenting about him for the last 2 years that he's going to take a big step. He's going to take a big step. I'm looking at him to actually do that this year. I know he got injured last year and made a big step, had a big step in the playoffs. But I'm looking for some improvement there out of him and take a little bit of an initiative as the running back one over there. But other than that, I have them sitting at 9-8 right now, just because of that record and just because of that schedule. Really, it goes across the board for a lot of these teams, but especially the Lions. This is probably the toughest schedule in the division, and I have them just sitting at 9-8 myself.
Right, the Lions have to play a first place schedule this year, which is never easy. When your extra games that the rest of your division doesn't play is against the Chiefs, Bucks, and Rams, it's not necessarily easy, right? It's not going to be an easy season for the Lions, but they have every single piece of the puzzle. I think it's just going to come down to coaching. And I think one thing that's really going to help the Lions offset this year from last year and the harder schedule is the fact that they're going to be healthy, presumably. Knock on wood, of course, right? Presumably, they're going to be healthier. We saw the incredible start that Hutchinson got off to last season, and then it felt like every single edge rusher they had went down. We saw the incredible start that some of those members of the secondary got off to last season, and then it felt like every single one of them went down. They go out and they sign Carlton Davis to go help with that back end, that depth. He's going to be a starter over there for them. He is huge. They bring back CJ GJ, Gardner Johnson, right? This is a team that's going all in on that defense, a defense that let up 55, not 55, but a whole lot of points to the Washington Commanders in the playoffs last year. This is a year that last year they felt was taken away from them, at least from what I've been seeing out of the Lions faithful over there. This is the year that they have to go back. The injuries, as long as they're better, should help offset that schedule. And because of that, I have them winning this division again at 11-6. It's not going to be as dominant as before. And again, I think they start off a little bit slow because of that coaching change. But as they get used to it, as the schedule lightens up a little bit, they play all of these first place teams from last year before the bye, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Bucks, as well as throw the Bengals in there and 2 division games before their early bye week. But then it kind of calms down. They get a nice little stretch where they can get into it, get everything going with that offense, get everything going with that defense. I think this is a Lions team that's poised to repeat, and I have them at the top of this division comfortably. This is actually the most comfortable division win in the NFC that I have. 3 games over the 2 teams I have below them, the Packers and the Bears, both finishing at 8-9, and then the Vikings lagging behind at 5-12. Now, I know we've heard your record predictions here for all these teams, and I know you guys, Mehrob especially, does not have the Lions repeating as the North. So I'll start with you. What is your overall record for this division? And I only have the Lions making the playoffs out of the NFC. How many teams do you have making the playoffs from the North?
I personally have the Viking. I have this. This the problem with this division. It's so hard to pick who's going to win. I think the divisional games are to decide who wins this division. Um, right now I have the Vikings and the Bears at the top, just based off schedule and based off, as I said, I have each of them splitting against one another, um, going 1-1. But that could easily change. A Vikings sweeping the Bears, the Lions sweeping the Bears beating the Packers, or vice versa, whatever it may be. That is the situation that I have. I'm in a predicament. But I would say realistically, there's probably two teams coming out of the NFC North. I have the Bears and the Vikings at the top right now for me at 10-7, and then the Lions and Packers at 9-8. But I could easily see that changing. Honestly, by week 6, really.
It's a pretty early change, but I have the other way around. I have the opposite. I have the Lions and the Packers coming out, and I think the Vikings and the Bears will be the ones falling short of the playoffs this year. But obviously, we all know the Bears. They're unless they have literally just the greatest season they could possibly have, they're still gonna be a good team, just not good enough for the playoffs yet. Like I had them at 7 wins, and I think the Packers are just always just going to be, they're like the Steelers. They're always just going to be in the playoffs. They're just a playoff team that just has so much experience just being in the entire team has just been there every year in the playoffs, year after year after year after year. And they'll be in it again this year. The Vikings, they could make it again, but we'll have to see. Like I said, like Jeremy, how he's questionable, JJ McCarthy. The only way they make it is if McCarthy plays well. If he plays poor, if he plays even a little bit down to his standards, they won't make it. A bad quarterback with that team is just not going to get them far enough to make it to the playoffs. And obviously the Lions, I still think they'll make it, regardless of what record they have. 10-7, 11-6, 12-5. I think they're going to make it, and hope, like I said, win the North.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a very, very interesting division. The NFC is all predicted, though. So I'm going to run through my playoff teams. The NFC is going to be tough. I think it's really a conference of the haves and the have-nots at this point. There are 8 teams that I have winning double-digit games in the NFC. Of course, only 7 of them can get into the playoffs, so it's going to be a battle. One of these teams that has 10 wins is not getting in. That's really the line when I'm looking at it. The 1 seed for me is those Lions. I don't have a team in the NFC that is over 11 wins. There are a couple teams up top with 11 wins, but no teams over it. 4 teams with 11 wins, the Lions, the Commanders, the 49ers, and the Rams. 3 of those teams win their division. Lions the 1 seed, Commanders the 2 seed, 49ers get the 3 seed, and the Rams at 11-6 get that first wild card spot at number 5. Now, the fourth winner for me at that division goes to the Falcons. I have them finishing at 10-7, winning that division by tiebreaker over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that tiebreaker is going to be huge because outside of that tiebreaker, the other team misses the playoffs. The Cowboys and the Eagles get in with the final 2 spots of my NFL playoffs. But because the Buccaneers, in the way that their schedule looks, at least the way I have it going, they struggle against the NFC teams. They lose out in the tiebreaker, not just for their division, but for the playoffs entirely. So we got the Eagles, Cowboys, Rams, Falcons, Niners, Commanders, Lions, 7-1 in my NFC playoff picture. What is your gripe or concern with my current NFC playoffs?
I don't think the Cowboys make the playoffs again. I think they fall short, in my opinion. That's the only thing I don't see. That's the only thing I don't agree with. I think they're still not going to be. I think the team is in too much of a rough state right now. But by that, I mean literally just Micah Parsons. But I think that if Micah Parsons ends up leaving, they will make the playoffs. If he does stay, I can see them. I see them because last year Dak was gone for practically the entire season, most of it at least, and them not having a good guy to give the ball to CD Lamb. I mean, literally, it's as long as you find CD Lamb, they're gonna make the playoffs. But I think if either one of those, I think if Micah leaves or if Dak somehow miraculously gets hurt again, which I really hope he doesn't, I think they don't make the playoffs. But I can see that if they stay fully healthy, they could make the playoffs at the 7th seed. If they don't, I wasn't here for the first 2 times where we did the NFC East and the NFC West, but I can see the NFC West sneaking 3 teams in. I think the Seahawks would be a good team this year. I think they had a really good draft. I think they have really good offense and a solid defense to back them up. I think if the Cowboys don't make it, the Seahawks would be the 3rd NFC West team to make it.
Yeah, I appreciate the Seahawks shout out. That I actually have them sneaking in as my last spot as well. But for me, I have the Commanders sitting at 1st, the Rams at 2nd, Vikings at 3rd. A little bit of a hot take, but I have some high hopes for this Vikings team. Falcons at 4th. I also have the tiebreaker going over them, going over the Bucks, and the Bucks just slipping it. I think the wild card race is going so tight. I think this year. I got the Eagles at 5, the Lions at 6, and then the Seahawks sitting at 7. I have the Seahawks and the Packers tied right now in a flop. I'm just rolling with the Seahawks because I'm a Seahawks fan, but just because of everything. But yeah, I have those 2 teams as the 7th pick.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be a brutal NFC next season. A lot to like, a lot to look forward to. We'll do a deeper playoff dive as, like we said, 1 month until the season officially begins on September 4th. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Who makes it out of the NFC North? What do you see the record being? And what do you see the order being for each of these teams in a very, very competitive division? Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Triple Threat Show. We have been your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus, Mehrob Fatemi, and Nolan Jambor over there. You can find us everywhere, all over the internet. You see our socials on the screen. Anywhere you get your podcast, go and check us out. Give us a follow. YouTube at Triple Threat Show, Twitch at 3 Threat Show, Instagram at 3 Threat Show _, and on TikTok at _, Triple Threat Show. We will be back on Wednesday talking everything that happens around the world of sports. Some new news surrounding Giannis Antetokounmpo. We start off our AFC preview as the football season is about to kick off. All that and more on the next Triple Threat Show. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.